Welcome back to the channel. This is Trinity Storm and you are watching second part of What If Naruto Became End of the World. If you enjoy this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
The metal orbs landed in Wave Country's deep forest. The boy who used to be called Uzumaki Naruto but is now called Apocalypse landed in a clearing and opened the orbs to let everyone out. When the former Leaf Shinobi got out, they didn't know where they were and saw that the ground was made of metal that looked like dirt. In an instant, the metal ground next to their host changed into a door, and Apocalypse waved his hand for them to follow. Tenten asked, "What do you think? Should we follow?" She was a little worried about walking into a trap, and she saw that everyone else was thinking the same thing. Well, everyone except Hinata. She was already at the door, so she didn't hear Kurenai call out to the Hyuga girl when she came through the passageway. "That answers our question," Anko said as she ran in with Kurenai to get Hinata, with the rest of the group following. When the group went down the long passageway to the other side, the door they came in through shut behind them, making them even more scared. If this was a trap, they couldn't get away, and they didn't know how to fight someone who could get into their minds or turn the metal around them into weapons. Apocalypse told them, "Don't worry. I'm not here to hurt you. I've made that clear since you all came to the meeting place." They seemed to calm down a bit, but they were still suspicious of him, so they decided to stay on guard just in case. Haku said, "Welcome home, Apocalypse-sama," as she came through an ice mirror and bowed to the young boy. She didn't care that the other Junin in the room looked surprised. "Thank you, Haku. Have the sleeping quarters for our guest been set up like I asked?" Asked Apocalypse when he saw the girl nod her head and the young boy smile at her. "As you said, Apocalypse-sama, each person gets their own room," Haku said as she felt his hand on her shoulder and tried to keep the heat from rising to her face. "Good. Please show them each to their rooms while I get ready for our defense," said Apocalypse as the ceiling above him split into a round hole and he went through it to deal with the annoying root forces that had been following him. Shoji said, "Defense? From what?" As he and the others followed Haku through Apocalypse's metal home and saw the girl look over her shoulder at them. "Not from what, but from who?" Haku asked as she showed them a row of rooms, each with the name of the person who would live there. When Ino saw the list of names above the doors, she asked, "Are these our sleeping rooms?" Haku nodded. "Yes, take a look inside to check them out." "Apocalypse-sama's room is down here next to mine and to Yuya-san's," said Haku. She saw them look surprised and wondered who this other girl was. Above the lair of Apocalypse, the Root Anbu asked, "Where did they go?" As he looked around and saw nothing that would show that the boy had been there. Fan out. "Once we find the location of the base, we need to tell Danzo-sama and prepare the necessary attack force," the Root Anbu captain said as he looked around and felt like something was wrong. Apocalypse said, "Your master is a fool." As the metal in the ground came out and pierced the Root Anbu while only piercing the Root Anbu captain's limbs. "You won't get me to talk, monster," said the Root Anbu captain as he looked up at this boy, who had taken off his Anbu mask and was holding his head in a painful grip. "I don't have to. The seal on your tongue won't let you talk about Danzo's secrets, but it doesn't protect you from my mental powers, and you will tell me what I want to know before I kill you," said Apocalypse as he went into the man's mind and took all the information he had learned while working for Danzo. The Root Shinobi couldn't do anything but scream out in pain, but no one was around to hear him. And it was during this time that Apocalypse found out a very disturbing truth about what happened to his mother the night she gave birth to him. This sent a fury through his body that the elemental countries would not soon forget. Down below Euro, after a few minutes, Apocalypse came down to his underground home, and he had a look on his face that said he was coldly angry and that anyone who crossed his path should run like hell. He went into the room with Cerebro before putting on the helmet. He was looking for the woman who was supposed to raise him, but he thought she had died soon after he was born. As Apocalypse scanned the Leaf Village, he found that some underground rooms were sealed off in a way that kept people's life forces from being detected. The same could be said for people's minds in those rooms. Naruto frowned at the barrier in front of him. He then turned up Cerebro's power to full and smash through the seal barriers until he could see all the life signs in those areas. He looked in each mind for his long-lost mother, who had been taken away from him soon after he was born and made it look like she had died giving birth to him. He knew this because it was in a report that Danzo had. The rude Anbu captain had found the report while looking through records for the old birdfucker, and the tool remembered the moment. "Where are you, Mom? Prove that you're here. Reach out with your mind and call out your son's name as loudly as you can." Apocalypse thought as he scanned each area and hoped his mother could hear him. "Naruto," said a tired woman, whose voice echoed. She was weak from being in this dungeon for so long, where she had been put right after giving birth to her son, whom she wanted to hold in her arms. Apocalypse opened his eyes wider and focused on the echo of the woman's pain in her voice so that he could get inside her head. Within seconds, he saw the woman who was his mother being held in a small room where she might not have had any privacy. She looked like she had been tortured. "Mother," Naruto said telepathically as he reached out to the woman and told her that her son was still alive. Kushina said, "Naruto? My son. Where are you?" Through this telepathic link, she could feel his presence in her head, so she knew this wasn't some sick genjutsu that Danzo did to hurt her. Uzumaki Kushina's instincts never let her down, and this was one of the times they were right. In Wave Country. "A lot has happened to me since I was born, and not all of it has been good. I'm not the same person I was when you brought me into this world," said Apocalypse, who was feeling something he hadn't felt in years: fear. He was afraid that his mother would turn him away. Fear that if she saw what he had become, she would call him a monster. "Let me be the judge of that, Naruto-kun," Kushina said, knowing that her son would worry that she would hate him just like Danzo had told her the village did many times before, and that her son would be his weapon one way or another. Kushina didn't want to let her son down. "Good enough. I'll get you out and away from the leaf," Naruto said as he cut the connection and got up from his chair, putting his red helmet back on his head before leaving the room. "Hello, Apocalypse. I've been looking for you," Kabuto said as he walked up to him with a smile, and it was clear that the young spy had some important news for him. "Tell me what's on your mind, Kabuto, while we walk." "I don't have time to read your thoughts, and I'm in a hurry," said Apocalypse, who was now walking with the young boy and had seen him nod. "Since you left Konoha, I've been gathering information there. I've found out that while your Fatha Euro, I mean the Yondaime, made your demands public, Danzo was planning to take them away. The War Hawk and his allies on both councils in Konoha have already taken the Uchiha out of the hospital before making it look like he died. They made it look like a hospital accident so they could train him in Danzo's root program and make him stronger than Itachi while keeping him loyal to them," Kabuto said as he saw his master frown and growl in an animal-like way before turning to glare at the older boy. "Find out where they have Sasuke and kill him," Apocalypse said, because he didn't want that boy to get in the way of his plans or make the councils act against him in some way. "Of course, Apocalypse-sama," Kabuto said when he saw the cold anger on the boy's face and knew he had to follow his orders right away. "Naruto-kun, where are you going?" Hinata said as she watched him walk slowly and stopped when she called him by his real name. "Hinata, I need to take care of something very personal. There is someone I want you and the others to meet when I get back from this, so have them meet us in the main living area," said Apocalypse as he looked at Hinata with soft eyes and then teleported away. When Tayuya came out of her room and saw Hinata looking at her closely, she said, "He seems to be under a lot of pressure lately." Hinata said, "You must be Tayuya-san," even though she had never seen the girl before. The Hyuga heiress could tell that the girl had a certain charm that Naruto might like. "And you are the Hyuga girl who has a bad crush on him because he saved you from that jerk from Kumo," Tayuya told the girl, who was blushing and looking away because she thought it was embarrassing to have a crush on her hero. "How did you learn about it?" Hinata said. She hadn't told anyone and hoped that the others wouldn't already know. Everyone in the world knows about what happened in Kumo. Orochimaru found out about it and put a report on his desk about what his spies found out. I looked at it. To be honest, if that thing hadn't happened, that jerk of a snake would have done it himself and made you one of his prized experiments, Tayuya said, knowing that the Sannin had hated that the Kumo ambassador had pulled that little trick, which doubled or even tripled Konoha's security. Do you know where Apocalypse-sama is going? Said Hinata. She had been told to call him by his new name in front of other people, but she almost forgot. No. But wherever he was going, Tayuya said, I wouldn't want to be the fools who made him mad, so I'd stay away from him. Hinata looked worried, and Tayuya felt. What's the right word? Underground tunnels of Konoha. When Apocalypse got back to Konoha, he was very angry. When people saw him, they ran away in fear and yelled for the Leaf Shinobi to do something. Some of the shinobi did what they were told, but the young Namikaze killed them with a few quick blows from his metal claws and then tore down the door to the base hidden beneath the village. Apocalypse moved without touching the ground, and as he did, he saw several root shinobi crushed against walls or cut into pieces by the anger that had grown in his heart. He could easily sense that his mother was waiting for him to save her so they could be a family again and make up for lost time. It's Naruto. What's up, Naruto? Minato said from behind, with Tsunade and Yugo's Anbu behind him. Don't get involved. I'm only here for one person, Apocalypse said as he ripped the last door off its hinges and saw that everyone in the room looked like they had been in hell. And his mother was crying as she looked up at him. Naruto, Kushina said, knowing that her son would save her because he was doing what he said he would. Mother, said Apocalypse as he took off his helmet and let it fall to the floor before going over to her weak body. What is Kushina? But. I thought that. Minato said. The Sandaime had told him that she had died, and the hospital records confirmed it. You've been tricked. As soon as you left with me to seal Kyuubi inside my body, Danzo took my mother and set things up so that the third would give me to him, Apocalypse said as he broke his mother's chain and picked her up, with the woman clinging to him like he was the only thing keeping her alive. Give her to me, Naruto. I'm the best doctor in every elemental country. I need to see how bad her injuries are, Tsunade said as she walked over to the boy. He looked at her and then back at his mother, who was whimpering his name. Put your hand on my shoulder, Tsunade, and I'll teleport us to the hospital in an instant, said Apocalypse as he put his helmet back on his head. The woman nodded, and the three of them left in a flash of red. Konoha Hospital a few minutes later. Tsunade carefully looked over her patient because she was appalled by how this woman had been treated, but she was glad the woman would get better and no permanent damage had been done. Kushina was also checked from head to toe for any seals Danzo might have put on her, and her mouth was also checked because the red-haired woman's son had told them that the root shinobi had seals on their tongues. How's she doing? It took a lot of self-control not to tear this village apart, Minato said as he saw his son in the corner, looking at his mother with a mix of worry and anger at the Leaf for screwing him over. Kushina has been beaten so many times that it's hard to say how many because it's been going on for so long. She was beaten badly on her back, and before she passed out, she told me that they hit her with several genjutsus showing Naruto being attacked by villagers to break her spirit. Tsunade told Naruto to take care of his mother's mind while she took care of her body, and she had to apologize to the Uzumaki for not being there for her son. Naruto had told Kushina how Jiraiya and the Sandaime had worked together to keep the Slug Princess away from the boy so he could stay in the village. She was also angry that Minato had used their son to seal away Kyuubi despite her pleading with him not to. She told Minato that no matter what, the boy would always be hated. Minato clenched his fists and said, "When I find Danzo, I'm going to destroy him and every base of operations he has in the Leaf." He could see that his son's magnetic energy was filled with hatred for the old Warhawk. When is she going to be ready to move? Apocalypse said as he saw Tsunade look at him like he was crazy and then Minato look at him in the same way. Move? Naruto, it's a miracle that she's still alive, and moving her without constant medical care would kill her, Tsunade said as she saw Naruto narrow his eyes at her and worried that he would hate her like he did the rest of the Leaf. She's not going to stay at the Leaf. My mother will be used as a hostage to keep me in line, and I won't be Konoha's weapon. You'll be with her the whole time, Tsunade-san. From now on, you'll be her main doctor until she gets better. As for moving my mother, I'm more than ready to do it now with you by her side, and I won't be turned down again. Smash through the wall with the window, said Apocalypse, and a metal orb opened to take the two women out of Konoha. It isn't that easy. If you move her now, even with me next to her keeping your mother alive, I can't promise that she will survive the trip. She could die before we get to where you're taking us, Tsunade said as she and Shizune continued to heal Kushina while trying not to look at the still angry Namikaze boy's glowing eyes. And you think it's better to keep her here? You have 3 hours to get her ready to go, and I want you, my dear father, to make sure that nothing bad happens to her before then, Apocalypse said as he disappeared in a red flash, leaving Minato to wonder what his son was going to do next. Training Center for Secret Roots. Danzo looked at the Uchiha boy on the bed, who had just gotten his arm back and was scowling. The boy wanted or demanded to know what had happened with the boy who had taken his arm off while using all that power like it was nothing. Danzo told the boy about Naruto and how the Namikaze had become an unbeatable being, and he loved how the Uchiha scowled at him when he said that last part. The spoiled child had asked to be trained to beat the Yondaime's son, and Danzo agreed as soon as the boy was fully healed so that he could get the most out of his training. I want to learn every jutsu, every skill, and everything else you can teach me about being a shinobi so I can kill this so-called son of the Yondaime, to prove that Uchihas will always be better, said Sasuke, who was hungry for power, and Danzo was going to give it to him so he could reach his goal. Well, yes. But as I just told you, Sasuke-kun, you won't be able to do it unless you rest and let your body heal properly. If you don't, your body will get weaker and you won't be able to kill Itachi, let alone Yondaime's son, Danzo told the Uchiha, who scowled even more and turned away from the Warhawk like a child who was told he couldn't have a cookie before dinner. As if the Yondaime's mutt could stop a pure-blooded Uchiha, Sasuke said in a mumble, while Danzo stayed quiet and left the room to figure out what to do. Moments later, another person sneaked in quietly. He was holding a syringe with a mysterious liquid in it that could kill the Uchiha in ways that no one knew. Kabuto thought, how the powerful Uchiha clan has fallen, when he saw Sasuke still looking away from the door. He was sure that Sasuke thought it was the root shinobi sent to stop him from escaping. Tell your master that I don't like being watched. Go wait outside and let me rest, you mindless tool, said Sasuke as he closed his eyes and moved around a bit in his bed restraints. Mindless tool? Ha. I was going to make this painless for Uchiha Sasuke, but now I feel very sadistic and cruel about taking your life, thought Kabuto as he planned to put the liquid in the boy's IV pouch and let it work that way. But if the boy thought he was untouchable, Sasuke's pride should be the last thing that kills him. Without warning, Kabuto stabbed Sasuke in the neck and poured the liquid into the boy's veins. He then left the room so Danzo's men wouldn't see him. Sasuke was now writhing in pain on his bed, and the monitors keeping track of his progress were now beeping in an alarming way. What Sasuke didn't know was that the liquid he was injected with was actually a venomous toxin that killed the person it was injected into in a painful way. Unless you were a demon vessel, your chances of surviving it were slim to none, with more emphasis on the none, and there was no antidote for the toxin. What hurt even more was that the liquid made the Uchiha instantly sterile with no chance of reproduction. Even when the root shinobi medic Nins rushed into the room to try to save the Uchiha, it was too late. The last thing the boy saw was Danzo yelling at his men to do something he couldn't hear clearly before the darkness took him. Sasuke Uchiha was now dead for sure. The office of the Hokage. The Sandaime sighed as he thought about everything that had happened since Naruto came back as this new person who called himself Apocalypse. The name alone sent shivers down his old spine, as he never thought things would get to this point, and he wondered what would happen to him when he died. He knew he was going to hell, but he didn't know what level. He thought it was probably somewhere between the 8th and 9th. Do you ever think about where you'll go when you die? Apocalypse said as he watched the old Cage almost jump out of his chair and have a heart attack that he deserved. Naruto, I was Ak, said the Sandaime as he tried to explain everything, but he couldn't because his body suddenly spasmed and he felt like he was having a stroke. It's funny how metal can be found in one's own blood, Sarutobi. With just the right amount of manipulation, I can make you have a stroke, seizure, and heart attack all at once while keeping you alive for days. It could be weeks. Do you know what it's like, old man, to just beg for sweet death to take you while you're being buried alive and hearing the people who are burying you say that this is the closest you'll get to a decent burial? I did. I remember wanting to die, but something inside me told me to keep going. At the time, I thought it would be easier to die. Then I had an idea that made me keep going until I was taken away, which was when I was strong enough. I would destroy the leaf myself. Apocalypse said as he watched the old cage clutch his chest and make a small pained sound. El leaf? Destroy it? But you told me. Said the Sandame, but he couldn't finish the sentence because Naruto was hurting him so much. What? That I wanted to become the Hokage? Do you really think I'd want to be Hokage of this village after all the crap people have put me through? It's like saying they were right to hurt me, and I don't want to get even with them by ruling over them like nothing happened. No. This village will burn to the ground in a dishonorable way made by the sinners who live there, said Apocalypse, who would never forgive the Sandame for betraying his trust when he was a child and the Leaf for betraying his family for their own selfish reasons. And Naruto, I'm sorry. The Sandame said as he crawled toward the boy and felt blood coming out of his mouth. He looked up into Apocalypse's cold, glowing eyes, which were staring back at him. No. Sarutobi, you're not sorry. Still not. Apocalypse said as he spread the 3 metal claws on each hand, making the young boy want to kill even more. The next time someone went into the Hokage's office, they would see pieces of meat and blood all over with the word, vengeance, written on them. Written right on the wall behind the desk, and all the pictures of the previous Hokages were stained with blood from where it fell. Hospital, after 3 hours. Apocalypse used teleportation to get to his mother's hospital room. He saw that his mother was getting better, but she still needed more rest. But if there was one thing the young boy knew, it was that if your enemy knew about a weakness you had, they would use it against you. Apocalypse couldn't let his mother get hurt because of him, so she was a temporary weakness. The boy knew that the arrogant fools in Leaf who were still in charge also knew this. Is she ready? Apocalypse asked Tsunade when he turned his head and saw his long-lost godmother looking worriedly back at him. Not even. If we do this, we need to move slowly. You can't teleport, and why are you covered in blood? Wow, said Tsunade as she saw that the boy was covered in a lot of the stuff. The sight almost made her stop moving. Apocalypse said, the Sandame Hokage of the Leaf is no longer among the living, which made Tsunade's eyes widen and Shizune gasp. Shizune was surprised that the old Hokage was dead, since he was a trained shinobi and wasn't going to die easily. You killed him? She asked. His debts to me needed to be paid in full, said Apocalypse as he watched Tsunade carefully pick up Kushina and Shizune help her bring the woman closer to the metal orb still in what used to be a wall. Go slowly, Naruto, Tsunade said as she got into the orb with a nervous Shizune. The orb then closed around them, and Apocalypse used his magnetic powers to easily lift the orb off the ground. It's Naruto. Wait, said Minato when he walked into the room and saw that his son and Kushina were about to leave the hospital. Not now. Right now, the health of my mother is the most important thing to me. Apocalypse said, I leave you to live in this village that laughed at me and deal with the haughty people while you look for those who deserve to be spared the Leaf's fall. He then took the orb out of the wall and flew away with it. Minato closed his eyes, sighed deeply, and thought, and to think, my son is just getting started. He wondered what else Naruto had planned. Sometime later, Apocalypse's lair. Tayuya said, he's here. When she saw him walk into the large circular hallway that led to different places underground. She pointed to the metal orb that held the people who lived in it. Once everyone was in the main area, Apocalypse used his magnetic power to melt the orb, which let out 3 women who had been trapped inside. Tenten had a short fangirl moment when she saw her idol standing in front of her. She yelled out who she was. This is Senju Tsunade, as Tenten quickly pointed out. Shizune is Tsunade's own student, and the woman with red hair is my mother. Uzumaki Kushina, said Apocalypse when he heard them gasp because they didn't know his mother was still alive and the adults had been told she had died. Shino asked, where was she? When he saw some of the wounds, which looked pretty bad. Apocalypse said, my mother was kidnapped shortly after I was born, and Danzo has been torturing her ever since in an underground base he runs. He heard more gasps, and some of the adults stiffened because they knew Danzo was an old man with no honor. Will she stay alive? When Ino saw that the woman looked like she was about to die, she asked why the boy moved her so soon from the leaf. Yes. My godmother will make sure of it, said Apocalypse as he left the shocked group behind and could hear Tsunade asking them for help. After you killed Sandame, why didn't you kill Danzo? You could have done it easily in Konoha, Kyuubi said as he looked at the plan that his ship made, but he was still having trouble putting together some of the pieces. I still need to get a few more people from the Leaf who are afraid to leave because of those still in charge. Why should I make them leave when my enemies will do it for me? People will need a place to go, and by then I will have the tools to make my own sanctuary that will be better than the hell the rest of the world made, thought Apocalypse. He knew that people in the Leaf couldn't leave without being hunted by Root Shinobi, and that it would take careful planning to make sure Root Shinobi didn't find out. Also, he had other shinobi villages to visit while that was going on, and he had a way to move his plan forward by taking another step. Meeting room for the Konoha councils. What? How can the Uchiha be dead? Homura slammed his fist on the table to show how angry he was about this news. He is. Someone gave him an injection of a powerful poison I'd never seen before, and it killed Uchiha Sasuke in a matter of minutes. I've tried to get a sample to study, but it works quickly and doesn't leave anything behind when it's done. Even getting the necessary samples from the Uchiha to use for reproduction in the future was useless, since the boy's reproductive system was destroyed and his seed was no longer useful. The Sharingan eyes were destroyed before we could get them out of Sasuke, so now only Itachi is left, said Danzo, as everyone in the room shuddered at the news and wished they could bring back the rogue Uchiha to start bringing the clan back to life. Do we already know who did this? As Danzo shook his head, no, Kaharu said, and the old woman's frown got even worse. What's worse, the Sandame has also been killed, leaving the village without a leader since the Yondaime won't take over. He has so much nerve. The whiny Haruno councilwoman said that she would have yelled at the man, but the man would have hit her all the way to Suna rather than listen to her screams for even a second. Jiraiya is still in the village, but I don't know for how long. If we don't keep an eye on him, he could be out of the village soon, said Homura. The Toad Sanin was the only thing keeping the village's enemies at bay, but the man had no reason to stay in the Leaf since his old student hated him so much. As long as Minato stays in the Leaf, so will Jiraiya, unless the Yondaime asks him to do something outside the village, Danzo said, knowing that the Sanin would do everything he could to make things right with his student and that this could be used to their advantage in some way. What about the Root Shinobi you sent to find the demon boy? Kaharu asked, did they come back? She wanted that boy to die and be buried before she danced on his grave. No. I've come to think that the boy killed them, which would explain how he found out his mother was still alive and set her free, said Danzo, hearing gasps from the group because they knew the woman was still alive but didn't say anything because they didn't want to get in trouble for knowing the truth. Screw it. If we had gotten to her first, we could have used her to keep the monster here and force him to do what we want, said Homura, who had long supported Danzo's plans to take over the shinobi villages. He tried to get the boy into the Root program, but Root had been officially disbanded, so there was no official place for the boy to be turned. Yes, I do. But for now, we have to stop fighting the demon boy because it's clear we're losing. We need to refocus our resources on ourselves before we can fight him again, Danzo said as he got the others to agree, and they started planning again on how to make the Leaf stronger than ever. At the moment, Namikaze Estates. Minato sat in his favorite chair in the living room of his house and drank sake while looking at the place where he had planned to raise his family and, if Kami would let him, live long enough to become a grandfather. Now, some of that hope was gone, because he knew he would live long enough to see his son burn everything down and build a new world out of the ashes. Jiraiya had told him about the Child of Prophecy, and how one of his students was supposed to make or break all of the shinobi villages. Then there was Kakashi, who was Minato's own student. At one point, the Sandame had written that Kakashi had not been watching over his son for private reasons, which made the Namikaze frown. Those two words were used during some of the worst attacks on his son, and Minato thought it was Kakashi who betrayed his son during those times. So Minato was waiting for his failed student to come to his house and tell him what the private reasons were. Even for something as important as this, you would be late. Minato said as he looked to the corner of the wall and saw his student come out of it without looking him in the eye. Kakashi couldn't lie to his old sensei, so he said, I had to. And the man glared at him to shut up. Don't waste your time making excuses. You're not Obito, so don't act like him, said Minato, whose temper was slowly getting worse as he saw Kakashi look down in shame. Sorry, Minato-sensei, Kakashi said as he sat down across from Minato and saw that the man didn't look too upset. I'm sorry for what? Your lame excuses or the fact that you didn't protect my son and left him to suffer for your private reasons, as you put it so nicely? Minato said as he saw Kakashi not looking at him, and the one-eyed Junin's eye snapped back to him with a flash of killer intent. After you died, I couldn't stand that Naruto was a fox, and I thought the people deserved to get their revenge, Kakashi said, as he looked at Minato and saw that he was very angry with him. He wondered what his old sensei would do to him. Why? Didn't you get that my son should have been seen as a hero? Didn't you know or even think that Naruto was my son? Minato couldn't believe that Kakashi didn't see this, and he saw that his student was confused. When I was still a genin, you told me that I would be the son you always wanted, and I was glad that you became my surrogate father after I lost mine. Then that woman came into our lives and made us happy. You spent all your time with her, and I was furious when I found out she was pregnant with your child. How could you have another child when I was supposed to be your only child? Every time I saw your son, I saw something in my mind that shouldn't be there, even more so when the fox was sealed inside of him, and I hated your son for being your legacy when I thought it should have been me, Kakashi said as he saw Minato narrow his eyes at him and felt the Namikaze's killer intent spike. You did it, didn't you? The one who helped Danzo take Kushina away and make it look like she died, Minato said as he listened to Kakashi, and at that moment, something clicked in the man's head at what his student had said. S-sensei? Kakashi asked when he saw Minato get up from his seat and look at him with cold eyes he hadn't seen since Iwa. Only a few people knew where Kushina was when she was giving birth to our child at the hospital, and they all knew how important it was to keep the secret. I know Rin never betrayed my trust because she was on the front lines. I also know Jiraiya didn't say anything, and the Sandaime was with us on the battlefield while Tsunade was busy healing the wounded. You were the only one left. After I left with Naruto, you sold my wife to Danzo. Minato said, you were the only one guarding her room. As he saw his student tremble in fear. The Cyclops had good reason to be scared, since he was about to die. S-sensei, please. Don't kill me, said Kakashi as he felt the shadows of death coming over him and the Shinigami seemed to be hovering behind his sensei. How many times did my real son beg for mercy, but no one heard him? Instead, people did what they wanted. Kakashi, karma is not something to mess around with. I should know from my own experience, Minato said as he smashed his former student to pieces and threw his body parts all over the room. When it was over, Minato looked at all the damage he had caused, closed his eyes, and let out a sigh. He wasn't sure if it was a sign of defeat or just being tired. Minato only knew that he had to leave Konoha because he could no longer stand it. My son wants me to stay, which is a problem. He wants me to feel guilty, too, and it looks like he's getting what he wants, Minato thought as he sat down in his chair again, not caring that it was covered in his former student's blood. Minato thought that all of his students were dead, and when the time came, so would most of the Leaf. With revelation. The little boy smiled at his mother as he ran his hand through her hair and let her know he was there with her through a telepathic link. As they talked in her mind, they made up for lost time and caught up on everything that had happened over the years. Kushina told him about her life before everything went wrong with Kyuubi and how she wished that Minato hadn't sealed the fox inside their only child. Soon, Mom. Soon, you'll wake up, and we'll be a family like we should have been years ago, Apocalypse thought as he put on a new dark crimson uniform without the cape and helmet because he didn't need them right now. You called me, Apocalypse-sama? Haku said this as she walked into the room and saw the boy caring for his sick mother. She blushed because he seemed like a whole different person. Yes. Tell everyone I have something important to say and need to talk to everyone in the living room, Apocalypse said as he kissed his mother on the forehead and walked out of the room. Haku was thinking that he should be kissed that way, but his mother shook her head to get rid of those thoughts since the boy could pick them up. I shouldn't be having these thoughts. Haku thought, he is my master, and I am his tool. A tool can't feel things for its master, as she left the room to do her job and tell the others. Living area at some point. What did you want to tell us, Naruto? Tsunade asked as she saw the boy frown at her for calling him by his old name. She made a mental note to try calling him by his other name when she was with other people. First of all, I want to say that now that my mother is here, I feel happy for the first time in a long time, and I want to thank you, my godmother, for making that possible. Second, I brought you all here today to tell you about a plan to take those of you with bloodlines to the next stage of human evolution and develop each of your bloodlines to their fullest potential, said Apocalypse. He could have laughed at their faces if this wasn't such an important event. Move on? How? Ino didn't think her bloodline could go any higher, but then she realized that her clan's mental powers were not that different from the Namikaze's. That's a secret of mine. Apocalypse told them, each of you has a unique skill that, when taken to the next level, will be unmatched. He said this as he saw some of them get nervous at the thought of becoming more powerful than anything the world had ever seen. Hinata asked the boy, are you sure, Naruto-kun? When she saw him nod his head. She was trying hard not to blush in front of him. Yes, Hinata-chan, I'm sure. To prove I'm telling the truth, I'm going to ask one of you to volunteer for this and show the others the end result, said Apocalypse, who had learned from his predecessor how to become more evolved and wanted to use it on them for his new sanctuary. Haku said, I'll volunteer Apocalypse-sama, because she saw this as her chance to show the boy who set her free that she was worth it and that her master had good intentions. Alright. Remember that this chance to change your bloodline and skills is up to you. It's up to you whether you do this or not, and if you say no, I won't make you, Apocalypse said as he motioned for Haku to follow him, and she did so without question. I wonder how Haku will look when she changes back. Choji said as he ate his chips, maybe I should try it. This made the others think about it, too. That would be cool. Anko said, maybe I'll have big jugs like Tsunade here, as she watched the guys get nosebleeds and Kurenai hit her on the back of the head, turning them into perverts, while the other girls beat up the guys, with the exception of Hinata. Hinata was wondering where her crush had gone with the girl, so she sneaked away to see what was going on. The Chamber of Evolution. From what the Namikaze could learn about his predecessor, he knew that the human body could adapt to almost anything. The fact that Kyuubi could live inside the Namikaze's body while he changed showed that this was true. All of the things the first Apocalypse used to change the boy who used to be called Naruto were moved from a secret place in the leaf to this room in Wave. This way to evolve my bloodline won't hurt me too much, right, Apocalypse-sama? Haku asked, as she was being held down on a table with a strange device hanging over her. Haku-chan, I won't lie to you. From what I've heard about my predecessor, this will hurt a little bit because we're making your body change. I don't want to cause you so much pain after all the trust you've put in me, said Apocalypse as he moved over to her and lovingly stroked her cheek as he watched the girl, who was a little scared, gather up what courage she could. Apocalypse-sama, I can take it for you. I'm what you use. Haku said, turn me into whatever your heart desires. She could tell from the sincerity in his voice that he didn't want to hurt her on purpose and that he was sorry for the pain that was coming. Alright. Get ready, said Apocalypse, who didn't like what was happening and wished there was a way to make the evolution happen without the pain. She shouldn't be in too much pain, and she shouldn't scream so much. Before turning on the machine, Apocalypse looked at the door and saw Hinata peeking into the room. When he pulled her toward him, she let out a eep. The poor girl was now looking nervously at him. Hinata felt like she was a child who had been caught doing something wrong by a parent. Hinata-chan, you've been a very bad girl for spying on me and Haku, said Apocalypse as he cupped her chin with his hand to make her look at him. He could feel that the poor girl was about to pass out from being so close to him. I'm sorry, Naruto-kun, I said. I was interested. Hinata said, "I'm leaving now," but Apocalypse's psychic powers turned her around again, and she had to face the boy again. "What happens if I don't want you to leave?" As Apocalypse smiled down at the girl, he could see that her eyes got a lot bigger. "What? You don't?" Hinata's face was getting hot, and she wondered if one of her dreams would come true. "No. I want you to stick with this until the end. As I told Haku, this will hurt her, and she will need your support along with mine," Apocalypse said as he had her stand next to him and turned on the controls for the machine above Haku to work. "I have to do this." Hinata thought, "I need to show Naruto-kun that I'm as strong as he is." She still had trouble calling him by his second name, so she hoped he would understand her point of view. After several hours, the group was both curious and worried about what had happened to Haku, who was the first of, possibly, many people who would soon evolve to meet him. At the same time, they noticed that Hinata wasn't with them. They tried to find her, but couldn't, and Kurenai was worried about the worst. "We should have gone looking for Hinata," said Kurenai, who felt bad for the poor girl and vowed to kill the Namikaze boy if he hurt her in any way. "I don't think Naruto would hurt her. From what I remember, the girl had a huge crush on the boy, and he doesn't seem to treat her like an enemy," said Ino, who remembered the shy girl wanting to prove herself to the former blonde. "No matter what, we might have to look for Hinata-san and save her from any dangers this place has," Lee said. Haku had told them not to go into certain rooms without his permission because they were private areas for Apocalypse. "No, don't," Apocalypse said, "she's right here," as he walked into the main area with Hinata by his side. Haku was on the other side of him, and they were both the same. "Hey. I thought you said that Haku would grow up." Anko said this because she didn't see anything new about the girl. She wondered if she gave up in the end out of fear. "Really? Haku, show her what your evolved bloodline can now do," said Apocalypse, gesturing for Haku to show them. The girl smiled. "Yes, Apocalypse-sama," said Haku as she let out a cool breath. She had shocked everyone when she turned her shin a cold, icy blue, giving the girl an exotic look with her hair shining like ice. "That's not all Haku's evolution can do," Apocalypse said as he moved a small metal ball in front of Haku. When the girl touched it, the ball froze in place. Shino said, impressive, when he saw that Haku's powers had changed from what he was seeing at the moment. He was curious about what Apocalypse could do for him. "It is, yes. As I said before, each of you will be changed into something that best shows off your skills or, if you have them, your bloodlines. Shoji, I won't lie to you when I say that your problem with being big will definitely be part of your evolution, but if you want to stay the way you are, I'll understand," said Apocalypse, who thought that not everyone needed to evolve and that not all bloodlines should go through the whole evolution process if it wasn't necessary. "Thank you, Naruto. For the record, I'm glad you stood up for me when we were kids and played with me in Shikamaru," Shoji said. He thought that the part of his bloodline that made him big would be the part that grew, and he was glad that his old friend understood how he felt about that. "My predecessor may have made me the new Apocalypse, but that doesn't mean I have to follow the same lonely, violent path he did and force people into servitude when they could be my friends or even loved ones," Apocalypse thought as he looked at Hinata, who was smiling at him, and he could tell that she really cared about him, just like Haku did. Maybe it was time to do more than just set up a place for people like him to stay. Maybe it was also time for him to think about having his own family. And now that he had the money, the Namikaze boy knew exactly what to buy with it. When he showed it to the world, it was going to shock everyone. One by one, the boy who used to be called Naruto evolved every shinobi who wanted to be even more evolved like Haku and get skills that can't be measured. Anko used her connection to snakes and her ability to infiltrate to change into a shapeshifter. She was known by her code name, Mystique. Kabuto had to avoid getting beaten up badly by some people because he used to be close to Orochimaru. He also earned the right to evolve and changed into a shapeshifter because he used to be close to the snake Sanin. He was now known by the codename Morph, which was perfect for Kabuto since his abilities let him go places he normally couldn't. He thanked his master for giving him this chance. As for Ino, her clan's abilities gave her telepathy like Apocalypse's, but not as strong as his. She could be a force to be reckoned with if she trained with him, and she could also turn her whole body into a living diamond if she studied it more. Even though this meant that Ino had to temporarily give up her mental powers, it helped her when she was in a close-quarters fight and forced her to use her body instead of her mind to fight her enemies. Ino didn't know what to call herself undercover, so she chose an alias and called herself Emma Frost. Shino had also gone through the procedure because he wanted to see what was in store for his clan if they wanted to evolve. Before Apocalypse did it, he said, "It makes sense that at least one member of the Aburame clan tries this, and since I'm the only one here, I'll do it." And in surprising ways. Shino's clan bloodline gave him a connection to bugs, so he got their abilities in the form of a spider, like being quick and being able to shoot webs from his wrist. He had the strength of Tsunade and could lift heavy things and stick to walls. He also had a spider sense that let him know when danger was coming at him. At the same time, the insects in his body didn't leave. They didn't want to lose their colony in his body, so they stayed and wanted to stay with Shino. Lee was going super fast like there was no tomorrow, just like he did when he was training with his gravity seals on. If he took them off, he would go even faster. His new hairstyle was also a surprise, but Lee didn't mind that it wasn't bowl-shaped anymore. It seemed right to the boy, Lee thought. Apocalypse was surprised that Choji wanted to go through with the procedure himself so he could see what it would do for him if his family wanted to try it. The Fox vessel didn't want to put Choji through this because it could turn him into something very fat, and it didn't want the boy to have to deal with that. But Choji would not give up and told him to do it. To say the least, the results were strange. The former Leaf Shinobi, Choji, could change his body into that of an unstoppable force or an immovable object, which is exactly what Apocalypse thought he would become. So, Choji gave himself two code names, Blob and Juggernaut, one for each form. He then thanked his friend for giving him this chance. Everyone else thought they weren't ready to go through the procedure. The young master of magnetism and a few other powerful people who were in charge of it just told them it was fine and reminded them that it was just a matter of choice. When the time came, if there was a plan, they would follow through and look for him. But Apocalypse said that not everyone can evolve like those who did because their skills and/or bloodlines were already at their most evolved state. Haku asked him, "What do you plan to do next, Apocalypse-sama?" As she stood next to him in his private office, after getting his permission to go in, and saw him looking at a big map of the elemental countries. Apocalypse said, "Tell me, Haku-chan, what do you see on this map?" He knew he could trust her and that Haku would always be loyal to him. "The elemental countries and the shinobi villages that live there for those who have them," Haku said as she carefully looked at the map, which looked like any other map. "Right. Now that word is getting out about my return and the plan I want to put in place for people like us everywhere. Do you think any of these places on the map will let us live there without question?" Asked Apocalypse, as he saw Haku think deeply and shake her head no at his answer. "No, Apocalypse-sama. They will see us as a threat and try to kill us every chance they get," Haku said, smiling from behind his helmet as he turned to face her. "Right, so the question for you is, how do we live in the elemental countries when there is no safe place to live?" Said Apocalypse, seeing Haku frown in thought and knowing she couldn't think of an answer. Haku said, "I don't know, Apocalypse-sama. I don't think it's possible." She saw him smile even more as he turned to face her, and she could see her face slowly turning red. "What if I told you that there was once an island between Wave Country, the coast of Fire Country, and Water Country? What if I told you that in this very spot, buried underwater, is an island that used to be called Whirlpool Country but is no longer on the map? What if I told you that I could raise the island from the ocean depths, which ate it up after one of Kyuubi's tails caused a tsunami that wiped it out and pushed it?" Kyuubi said, "I did tell you I was sorry about that, but he wasn't fully to blame because Madara was in charge of him and the jerk hated all shinobi villages." Haku asked Apocalypse-sama, "Can you really raise it from the ground?" Even she didn't think it was possible to raise such a place from the ground, and while she didn't doubt her master, it made her wonder if he was going crazy. "Of course," said Apocalypse as he put a piece of paper with the Whirlpool Country symbol on it where the island would have been on the map. Haku said, "Apocalypse-sama, I will do everything I can with the new powers you gave me to help you rebuild Whirlpool Country." She knew that if he was too weak, his enemies might come looking for him and try to kill him, which might be their only chance. I know you, Haku-chan, and I appreciate your help. Just so you know, Whirlpool Country is going to be renamed, and it will be a sign for everyone who has been wronged in the world to seek refuge on my island, said Apocalypse, noticing that Haku's eyebrow was raised as if she wanted to ask him a question. What will they call the island then, Apocalypse-sama? Haku asked as she saw the boy smile in a way that was half sly and half naughty and saw the fire of ambition in his eyes. Apocalypse said, it will be called Genosha. It will be a safe place for the wronged, the innocent, and the discriminated people of the world. He was going to use all of his powers to make his dream come true. After Genosha was grown up, he would help save his family from the other people in the elemental countries. This would lead to the young boy teaching his enemies one last lesson. The young Namikaze heir was going to remind them before they died not to anger a member of the Namikaze clan. If they thought his father was bad when he was angry during the last Shinobi War, they should wait until they have to deal with Namikaze Minato's son and find out what real pain is. At the moment, the place is unknown. So our information was right, and the Kyuubi vessel is alive, Pain said as he stood in front of 8 other people who were now listening carefully to the information they had gathered. About 12 years had passed since the Akatsuki organization was created with the goal of capturing all the tailed demons and putting them in this statue, which they thought would be the ultimate weapon in their hands, since they were supposed to be immortal, and end war forever. Of course, that was the organization's official goal, but one Uchiha named Madara, who was working in the shadows, knew the real reason: to get all the beasts to form the 10-tailed beasts, take over its body, and then cast the ultimate Tsukuyomi on the world so that he could rule it like a god. Madara was a Uchiha, so he thought that anything less than godhood wasn't worth taking unless it was the real thing, which he believed he deserved. Yes. Turns out he did quite a number on the Leaf and Fire country as a whole. Turns out the village screwed him and his old man the Yondaime over before going off the map. Now at the Chunin exams, the kid comes back, renames himself Apocalypse, and unleashes the most vicious psychic attack in the history of the elemental countries, said Kisame, as he sees everyone around the room looking impressed by such an attack, and that it was done by someone so young. Itachi said, he also read Orochimaru's mind and did a forbidden jutsu that brought people back from the dead, which brought the Yondaime back to life. Everyone stiffened at that, and Itachi knew that if the yellow flash was back, it would be harder to get the man's son. What's even scarier is that the Sandaime was in on the Gaki's abuse to make him more submissive to the village. Rumor has it that the Kyuubi vessel paid the old Cage a visit later and tore him to pieces. Not only that, but the Gaki's mother is still alive and was tortured by Danzo, Kisame said as he saw the other members murmuring and fidgeting. Pain said, I guess the boy was ecstatic when he heard this, after seeing Itachi and Kisame shake their heads no. He tore through that place like a bat out of hell and did a lot of damage in the process. We sneaked into the village to look at the damage the kid did, and trust me when I say the Kyuubi vessel has anger issues, said Kisame, who had seen the path of destruction and death Naruto made to get to his mother. If he didn't fear the kid so much, Kisame would be jealous of him and ask that he be given a job. Pain asked, do you know where he is now? Finding the Kyuubi ship was now the most important thing, and he couldn't lose him a second time. We lost his trail, Pain-sama. He threw off any trail his chakra makes by sending out a huge electromagnetic discharge. It messed up my Sharingan, so I couldn't follow, said Itachi, whose eyes hurt when they tried to follow him from Konoha and lost him halfway to any elemental country that was north of Fire Country. Pain said, this is very scary, but we don't need him right now, so we can ignore the Kyuubi vessel within reason and go after the others. The others nodded, and they left to focus on their own sealed vessels. At the moment, Wave Country. Apocalypse was on a beachhead in Wave Country where there was a port for ships. This is what he wanted, so he spent a lot of money to buy a transport-class ship called the River Styx to go out and check it out. On the boat he was on with Haku, Kabuto, Hinata, Tsunade, Kurenai, Anko, Ino, Shino, Lee, and Shikamaru. Kabuto disguised himself as an unknown ship captain to stay out of sight. After a few hours, Apocalypse told Kabuto in his mind to turn off the ship. He then walked to the front of the ship and stared out into the empty ocean while the others stood behind him. Ino was told to move closer to his position on the ship so that he could catch him if he fell from overworking himself. Then he started to rise into the sky and used his psychic powers along with his magnetic powers to start the very hard process of lifting his mother's home from the ocean depths. "Do you think he can do this?" Tsunade asked when she saw the boy hovering over the water and saw that something was slowly rising and making waves. "I don't know. When he first told everyone what he was going to do, I was skeptical, but after seeing what I have seen with Kyuubi, Kushina being alive, and the Gaki's powers, I think Naruto can," said Kurenai. She knew the boy was not a monster, but had almost been turned into one by so many people, and he wanted to make things right in the world. "Nothing can stop Apocalypse Sama. He's on a mission, and no one is going to stand in his way," Haku said as she watched the water rip violently and knew her master was going to do it. And that's exactly what Apocalypse did. He let out a loud roar and used all the power in his body to pull Whirlpool Country, the lost island, up from the depths of the ocean. Once he got it to stay still in the water, the young demon vessel let go of his magnetic and psychic powers, which caused him to lose consciousness as he fell to the ship below. As soon as she saw Apocalypse falling, Ino used her newly learned physic powers to slow him down. However, she could only hold him for a few seconds before Haku changed into her new ice form and went up to catch him, making a bridge of ice to get there. Haku brought him to Tsunade and let the Slug Princess look him over with a critical eye. She found that the boy was dangerously overusing his powers to lift up his utopia. The Namikaze heir would have to stay in bed for more than a week, but that was all. For now, he was disabled. Haku volunteered to be Apocalypse's personal nurse right away so she could help him get better. She had done the same thing for Zabuza before he died, so she had no trouble doing it again. As Tsunade brought Naruto and Haku deeper into the ship, the others looked at the huge island that the boy had released into the world and suddenly understood a key part of the Namikaze heir's plan. Naruto was planning to bring everyone who had been wronged, persecuted, shunned, or oppressed in the elemental countries to this island so that they could be free. All that was left to do was tell the world about it. After a week, 3 days, and 8 hours, the boy, who would grow up to be a man and was called Apocalypse, woke up in the ship's medical bay. When Apocalypse got out of bed, he saw that he was wearing a hospital gown. His clothes had been taken off so that he could rest and so that his godmother, Tsunade, could do her own medical checkup on him while he was healing. As soon as he got out of bed, the boy used his magnetic powers to bring back his metal-woven clothes and his helmet, which covered his spiky, almost animal-like hair. As he walked out of the room, he saw the Haku walking toward his room with a tray of food. He was glad to see that the Haku was able to move around on his own. Haku bowed her head and said, "I'm glad you're feeling better, Apocalypse-sama." She hoped she had done a great job as his bedside nurse. "Yes, I am. Thank you, Haku-chan. Please follow me and bring the food, too. I want to eat outside today while looking at the ocean and being with people," Apocalypse said as he watched Haku blush and walk with him to the ship's deck. When they got to the deck, the boy saw that everyone else was relaxing. Choji was eating as much as he could from the fridge, Kabuto was still in his captain form, and Shino was playing shogi with Shikamaru to see how smart he was. Lee was training quickly, using his speed, while Ino, Tsunade, Kurenai, and Anko laid out in the sun. Hinata was there, too, but she was more covered than they were. When she saw Apocalypse and Haku coming over to them, she rushed to cover herself even more. "Hey, there's my favorite godson," said Tsunade as she took off her sunglasses and saw the boy she had spent 12 years raising walk toward them with a smile on his face. For once, the cold anger that used to fill those blue eyes was gone. Instead, they were filled with a warmth that made the women in front of him blush hard. "Tsunade-san, you know I'm your only godson, but thank you anyway, and I hope you're having fun," said Apocalypse when he saw them nodding and Anko doing some sexy poses for him before Kurenai glared at her to stop. "Of course, but how are you doing, Naruto-kun?" Tsunade asked as she saw him flinch at her name for him, which he had never liked for obvious reasons, and look out to where the island was before smiling. "Better." Now all I have to do is move everything in my base of operations to the island and start calling people to come to my sanctuary, said Apocalypse as he looked at the island in the distance and saw it had become the paradise he knew it would be under his young leadership. Ino asked Apocalypse, "How are you going to do that?" Because she was curious about the boy's plans and saw that he was grinning. "The same way I attacked Fire Country Ino-chan, but without the pain and begging for death," Apocalypse said with a small laugh. He then turned to Hinata, who was tightening the towel around her body and blushing as he got closer. Apocalypse sat down next to her and motioned for Haku to sit down next to him. He then used his powers to take the tray of food out of her hands and put it on his lap. Hinata was worried that her towel, which she was using to cover her body, would somehow fly off, revealing her two-piece bathing suit, which she had gotten from Anko but didn't know how. This would show her shape to him. "You look nervous, Hinata-chan." "Why is that?" asked Apocalypse as he watched the Hyuga girl blush more and wrap the towel around her body more while acting like a shy turtle. Hinata blushed more when she thought about how her crush could read her mind. She said, "And no reason," and let out a "eep" before looking away. "Hinata-chan, you know that's not true, and if you don't tell me what's behind the robe, I'll have to take it away from you," said Apocalypse, as she looked even more scared and shy in a cute way that made him laugh. "You don't have to keep making fun of poor Hinata," said Kurenai, who couldn't help but see that her student was in trouble. "Maybe, but it's for her own good," said Apocalypse as he used his psychic powers to remove the long towel covering Hinata's two-piece outfit. This made every man on the ship look at her in shock. Hinata said, "Please don't look at me, Naruto-kun. I'm ugly," as she tried to hide her body and saw her crush get up and stand right in front of her. "Who says that?" "Hinata-chan, you have no reason to hide that body of yours, and you should be proud of it because it hides incredible power just waiting to be released," said Apocalypse as he watched the girl blush all over and pass out in his arms. Anko said, "Pay up." "I called it," as she reached out for the money Tsunade owed her. The Sannin gave it to her, but half of it flew out of her hands and landed to Naruto's right. "This is my cut from your little bet," said Apocalypse as he put the Hyuga girl back in her chair and covered her with a towel so that the other men on the ship wouldn't look at her helpless body. "She really likes you, Naruto," said Ino. She didn't have to read Hinata's mind to know what was going through it and how much the Hyuga heiress wanted the young master of magnetism. "I know. I just want the poor girl to come out of her shell. Hinata has a lot of potential, and I plan to bring it out in my own way," said Apocalypse as he sat back down and started eating the meal Haku had made for him while giving Hinata his full attention. Haku asked Apocalypse-sama, "Is the meal good enough for you?" As she watched him take a bite of the sushi she had made for him, close his eyes for a moment, and then slowly open them again. Apocalypse told Haku, "Very nice, Haku-chan. This is food that is also a work of art," and he loved seeing her blush at the compliment. Kurenai thought, he better not break Hinata's art, as she watched the boy act more like a boy than he did a few days ago and wasn't trying to destroy the leaf. "Kurenai-san, I wouldn't dream of hurting Hinata-chan, and just so you know, under the Clan Restoration Act, I'm subject to the laws of every shinobi village," Apocalypse said with a smile as he watched Kurenai blush in embarrassment at having her mind read and then glare at him. "Really? Can I join?" asked Anko, smiling in a devilish way at him. The people around them looked shocked. "Anko. For Kami's sake, he's a few years younger than you," Kurenai said to Anko as she pouted at her. She then gave the young Namikaze her sexiest smile. "So what? Age doesn't matter in the shinobi world or between clans. Naruto-kun got the short end of the stick when he was a kid, and so did I when I came back to Konoha as the Hibitomi's former apprentice," Anko said as she winked at Apocalypse, who laughed at her, and saw Haku turn his head slightly to glare at the older woman. "You make some good points, Anko-chan. Here's what I'll do. I'll take you out on a date if you help Hinata-chan come out of her shell and get stronger," said Apocalypse when he saw Anko nod her head firmly and say they had a deal. "Hinata is so bad off." Lee asked, "When do we go back? The others must be worried about us." He knew he could easily zip from the boat to their temporary home on land and let everyone know what was going on. "No need. I contacted them telepathically, and they know what I've done. My mother is crying tears of joy right now because her home is now above the ocean floor, said a crying Apoc no Namikaze Naruto, as if he could stop being that person for one moment and just be a simple boy whose mother was getting the best gift any son could give his mother. In a way, his mother needed this more than he did, and Naruto wasn't going to mind in the least. Soon, the biggest migration in all of human history would start, and then the cancerous thing that was making it bad would be gone.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.